On. So hot on the heels of Analogue's recent OpenFPGA update, it's been another busy week for the Analogue Pocket, with the mysterious spiritualized 1997 releasing more cores, major updates to the Neo-GEO core, and some interesting developments in the Mister community. Cue the Intergot details.
Should have just said cue the Intergot.
Cue the
But
Intergot.
I respect you for reading my my notes that were meant to more be like, show, what is
Yeah,
it, show directions or whatever?
Yeah, no, probably should put like
I was
square
told
brackets
off at
around
the
it.
start of the show for not following directions, and I'm trying to follow
Mike,
directions.
it's all right because I'd colour them something different, but there's no colours at the moment, so it's like...
Yeah, no, the colours got balked.
Anyway. That's behind the scenes.
Okay,
So
tell us about it.
yeah, there's some like, and Mike, you gotta get this little baby back, the Analog Pocket.
Give me a moment, I will go grab it.
It is awesome.
To
No,
touch
wait,
it while you
listen
talk
to
about
my
it.
No,
update.
he's using that
Listen to my updates.
as an excuse
So I
to
have to
go
listen to talk about
take
it.
a piss.
So what happened this week? So there were some major announcements. So, the mysterious spiritualized 1997. Who knows who this person is? It released 3 new cores covering Sega Game Gear, Master System, and the SG-1000. So that does join his previous 2 cores, which were the Game Boy Color, which also works for Game Boy, and Game Boy Advance. They have full compatibility with all their game libraries and all of the analog features, so memories, save states, all that kind of stuff. The things that are missing at this stage are the special display modes. I think you guys remember that you can make it look like an old school Game Boy for Game Boy, and then you can make it look like how the Game Gear looked back in the day. You can't currently do that on these cores, but it will come in the future. Nice. So I played the hell out of this week. I didn't mention it up front, but I knew we were going to get to it here. I have a funny history with the Game Gear in particular. I've said about it on the show before. As a kid, all I ever wanted was a Super Nintendo. It's quite sad, Mike. Like, I made a Super Nintendo out of cardboard. It was like, we'd sit in front of it and just like imagine playing Super Mario World and stuff like that.
Well, that's why your
right?
mom probably never bought it. She's like, where am I going to buy one if you have one right there?
No, so what happened was...
Wait, we have a Super Nintendo at home.
It was my birthday, and I'd literally been wanting a Super Nintendo for like 2-3 years, right?
Wow.
Like every year, like Christmas, birthday, that's all I wanted, right? And then it came to my birthday. I think this was in grade 6 or so. I think it was grade 6 from memory. And my mom's like, oh, we got this thing for you. I'm like, it's like a game thing, right? I'm like, whoa, I'm going to get a Super Nintendo. This is
I
cool,
don't
right?
like where this is going.
So I'm like, I get the package like when I'm a kid, and I'm an arsehole, right? But anyway, and I see, I'm like, this looks too small. So I open it, and I'm a big Nintendo fan, right? And back in the day, obviously, Sega and Nintendo, you hate each other. And I open it up, and it's a Sega Game Gear, and I was like, oh my God. And then my mom's like, oh, the sales guy said, nah, you wouldn't want a Super Nintendo. This is like much better.
So that's harsh. That's harsh.
And I'm like, oh my
That is
God.
harsh. That is how you get mummy issues.
And like the Game Gear was a decent system,
It's not bad. The Game Gear is really fascinating in the sense that, the Master System, which is not very popular in America, wasn't really released properly there, but it was released here in, Europe and South America.
Popular, yeah.
It was huge, like in those countries, in like continents and places. But the thing that I think is interesting about the Game Gear is it's effectively a Master System that's portable, right? Which is not like the Game Boy with the NES and you go, oh yeah, they port games. I mean, they literally would take, like, and this is not too common, but they sometimes took actual Master System games, hardwired some of the pins, right? Shrunk down the IC and then just put it on the Game Gear. It was like, It's literally the same ROM, right? Like the exact same bits, every part of it wasn't even ported. It just made it run in Master System mode on the Game Gear. So it's pretty interesting system in that way. I have like nostalgia for some of these games. Like I'm including in the B-roll for Donald Duck, the Lucky Dime Caper. There are like legit, like there are some decent games. And it's kind of funny, like when you now compare it to something like a Game Boy, because it came out around the same time. And the way you can play it on a Pocket, it does like kind of, show its strengths versus what, the Game Boy could do at the time. Because it's not very fair to compare it to the Game Boy Color that came out much later. So
it's also because like the Game Gear the battery life compared
It was
to the Game
horrible.
Boy.
Wasn't it really bad?
There's
Didn't
six
you-
AA
Yeah,
batteries.
6 AA.
And it would burn it out in a
rechargeable.
few hours, right?
Yeah.
And they were
Yeah.
expensive back in the day. And you could get
Especially
like,
as a kid, it's not like you got just
Yeah.
go buy more batteries, you know.
no, exactly. And I got the rechargeable ones, but the rechargeable ones back then would
They were not the
last
same as any
like
loops.
way less. You know, they're not like Osbug and any loops. So like, look, this core's awesome. Huge shout outs to, I was about to say his name, the Specialized 1997 dev. And it's an exciting time for Pocket, but I'll try to get through some of these a little bit quicker because I know I'm banging on about it a bit too much. Oh, you agree, do you, Mike?
No. Just-
So
We're all good. We're all good.
there was a
We're all good.
Neo-GEO update
This
as
is actually
well.
really interesting.
So I totally think you should try this out, Mike. So Kiwi-dev Mazamars312, and then a whole bunch of other people. We'll put it in the show notes. Furrtek, Jotego, blah blah blah. You know, they're all sort of developed the cores for NEO-GEO on Mister, so the big Mister project, and Mazamars312 is porting it to the Analogue Pocket. And he just released an update. It's lucky that we did this show today because the release only came out on Monday. And man, it's a huge change from like the first version he released was really like okay, I've got this working, but it was like so tricky to try to do it. You'd have to go in and out of folders and all this crazy shit. Whereas this is working, man. Like most games work on this, some don't because of, you know, just the size of the ROMs. It's too big for it to load just into the RAM of the Analogue Pocket, so they'll have to do some crazy stuff for that. So massive update. If you've tried out the NEO-GEO core before, you should try this out. And, you know, things that are coming in the future, and it might not be that long actually, are things like full game compatibility, you know? So that's even like things like Swinny, like SNK versus Capcom. And
Sheesh.
and
That
like
can be nuts.
playing this, like I played like Metal Slug, Wingjammers, all the King of Fighter games that I could, Fatal Fury because of Fatal Fury's announcement, Shock Troopers, you know, Samurai Showdown. It is insane. Like NEO-GEO is like a funny system for us in Australia and never got released here. It's still the most expensive, if you translate it into today's money, still the most expensive console.
It was always these games in NEO-GEO. Like whenever I'd get an American like imported video game magazine like EGM,
Yeah.
and there was a bunch of games even on Super Nintendo that we weren't getting, but I'd look at the NEO-GEO games and be like, what the hell?
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
I'd see the American pricing of them. I'm like, oh my god, these games cost this much? It's insane.
So I did the math. So so the NEO-GEO, the clever thing about it was more like arcade. That's where it all started, right? And they made it so that you would have, you know, the system and you could actually put like ROMs, like real ROM, physical arcade ROMs, and you could put up to 6 in a machine and it would all run on the same like hardware. So it was a lot cheaper for people to actually have NEO-GEO arcade machines in the long run. So that was the kind of like, not the gimmick, but the strategy that SNK did with the NEO-GEO. And then they actually in Japan made it like, they were like, oh, we could probably make this into a home version, but it's so expensive. We'll just make it into a rental. And then the demand in Japan was so crazy. It was like, no, we want to buy this. We don't want to just rent it. And they're like, well, okay, we're going to charge you for it. So the US cost, it's still the most it's ever been, was $650. But if you translate it into Australian money and then inflation and stuff like that, it's literally the equivalent if they released it today for $1,680 Australian.
That is a lot for an arcade.
That's what it would have been the launch price. Imagine
I'm trying to
that.
remember. I'm trying to remember what the games were priced at US. It was like,
Oh,
weren't they like 150, 200 or
yeah.
something like that?
Yeah, like
US
100
Yeah.
US dollars minimum.
And
but
that,
more
and
like
that was back in the
150.
90s, you
Yeah.
know.
Whoa.
So your game here would have been like $250.
Yeah.
Like without inflation. It was insane, right? But anyway, like I think you're right, Swinny. There was something always about the NEO-GEO to me that was almost like, because growing up in that era with SNES and Genesis or like Mega Drive for us, it was like a different universe. It was like a parallel universe of like a better 2D system, right? With like better graphics and shit. It's like, whoa. But yeah, just going back to this like core, it's awesome. It's super exciting news. And I think it also just shows that, man, if you get the NEO-GEO to work on the Analogue Pocket, and it's so freaking crazy to be holding like a portable, cycle accurate NEO-GEO in your hand effectively, you know, there's just so much cool shit that's coming up with the Pocket. Speaking of which, So one of the most famous core developers, so he's Mr. Core Developer Jotego, who is most famous for his CPS2 core. So that's like Marvel vs. Capcom, the Alpha series, everything like that. Seems to be in the process of porting his cores to the Analogue Pocket. Now, I just say that because he's the one who put up a poll on his Patreon. He said, should I port my cores to Analogue Pocket? So he just asked his Patreon. He's got a huge Patreon, like 3,000 patrons. And it was literally 50-50 with just a little bit more people voting no, do not port the cores. Now, this is like, I don't really want to get involved in this war that's happening at the moment. Like, there's this fucking, like, bullshit, like, crap war that's happening between, like, Mr. people and everyone else, or Analogue Pocket people. It's so dumb. It feels like you're about to say something, Swinny.
No, I was just trying to imagine playing something like Marvel vs. Capcom on the Analogue Pocket's controls and being like, how would that feel?
Yeah, well, but yeah, no, there's like a lot of fighting games on portable handouts, so I don't think they're that bad. Sorry about this. So he did say, like, you know, went to the poll, he lost the poll. And then he just posted the other day, he's like, I think the fact that, like, if I start porting things to the Pocket and, you know, the patron has kind of gone flatline, I might get more patrons if I port the cores, right? So I'm a bit like, why did you put the poll up? I'm not really, you know, it's a bit strange. And it does seem like there's some back and forth with him and Analogue themselves. So one thing about the whole community is, like, Analogue's very, like, secretive about most stuff, and they're very controlled from a PR. And, you know, people in the open source community hate that shit with a passion, which I don't mind it, but, you know, I understand why they don't like it. But it does sound like all the cores could potentially be translated, especially like the early ones in the CPS 1 and CPS 1.5, which to me would be friggin' insane, because it's stuff like Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Cycle Accurate, and then potentially, eventually, you know, Marvel vs. Capcom and things like that, which you've ordered the dock rights, Winnie, for the Analogue Pocket.
You did?
Yeah. You asked me
2 years
Well, I just
ago.
want to confirm, but so
right.
like, you know, you could
Every
plug
show
that
he
in
asks that
and play it, and it's gonna be like, it's just, to me, totally insane. You know, like a portable way to play these games. I don't know, man. It's just, it's super, super cool. Like, I'm super looking forward to it. And then the last one is just a quick one. Josh Bassett is sorry, I forgot that I changed the way my setup worked. So he's an Aussie. I did check. He's the actual Aussie. FPGA dev.
Real Aussie,
He did.
okay.
He did the Cave arcade core, so it's like a lot of bullet hell games and things like that.
Yeah, I never desire to play any cave games. They just look like they're not my thing.
Yeah, they're
But
crazy.
I know people love them though.
But, you know, dude, and when you see the pockets, Winnie, the thing that's, like, I actually think, you know, playing the Neo-GEO games and things like that actually demonstrates something about the Pocket that is quite unique. The screen resolution is just, like, insane, right? Because it's 1,600 by 1,400 from memory.
That's a lot for the tiny screen.
Yeah. So, but the Neo-GEO looks so crisp. It's like, whoa, this is insane. I think these bullet hell games will look really, like,
They would look sick,
stark.
actually, yeah.
Yeah. So he's already got it. Like, I think the reality is getting it over to the Pocket is pretty simple compared to, like, building a core from scratch. Like, it's not just a one-click thing, but it seems like, okay, a month's worth of the work and you can get the core up on the Pocket. So I don't know, man, like, it's awesome time for the Pocket. You know, hopefully they can spit more of them out and kind of chill everyone out about, you know, Analogue and what they're doing in general. But yeah, like, it's a cool time to have the Pocket, man, and you should get onto it, Mike, because
I'm going to go right now while you
should
talk
update your Pocket, and then I have some files I can assist you with if you need that assistance.
Sounds good. I will go and update it while you talk about
Oh yeah.